Hello, it's Hannah, and you are listening to No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the Psych Ward, answering the big question, how to navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one.
Hello and welcome back. I hope you've all had a lovely 2 weeks. Sorry that there wasn't an episode last week. I was very much practicing what I preach and did not have enough time, so was looking after myself and my brain. But we are back this week with another episode and I'm super excited to get started. So I think, like many of us, I'm in a period of my life where a lot is going on, and there's loads of changes, and I'm kind of trying to navigate where I want to be and what I want to be doing, and that same kind of goes for this podcast. So I was thinking about what to film for this episode, and I thought I'd go right back to the beginning, kind of what this podcast is called. No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the Psych Ward. How do you navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one? And I think it's such a strange concept of, for so long growing up, I never expected to be an adult. I never expected to make it to the age of 18. And even once I turned 18, I was so determined to not make it any longer that I never really had a kind of plan or idea or expectation of what I was going to do with this life and like what being an adult meant. And I think for so long I had such a negative connotations when it came to being an adult, and I spent so long kind of in fight or flight mode and so long just surviving that I didn't really know what it meant to thrive and what it meant to live. And when I kind of got out of hospital, and when I, even after that and a long time later when I kind of got a lot better, you kind of are left with this whole big opportunities out there. There's so much to do, there's so much that you can do. And how do you navigate this new, unexpected part of life? When you're so determined that you're not going to make it to an adult, you don't necessarily have the hopes and dreams that maybe other people do. And I think that is something that can be really tricky to navigate and really confusing. And like, how do you navigate this thing that you never wanted or never thought you'd be? There's so much pressure these days, I think, to be something or to achieve something or to succeed. And there's definitely so many questions about what that actually looks like. And I know we speak a lot about the fact that there is no one way to succeed and there is no one path. But what even is an option? What is a path? And I think we talk about there being not one, but sometimes for some of us, it's hard to even know what the options are. And I think that's something that I definitely struggled with. And I kind of wanted to share a bit of my story about kind of how I've got to where I am today in terms of choosing ideas and choosing paths, and how I've gone from someone who was very determined to have a very singular path for a long time. I wanted to go and do paramedicine or medicine, and that was kind of all I ever thought. Then I went to someone who didn't even want to be alive, to now being someone who wants to have as many different career kind of things in their life and do as many different things as they can. And it's kind of like a whole 180 turn from someone who is very set on only doing one thing to someone who is really excited and keen to do as many things as possible. So I'm currently about to do something that I never ever thought would be possible, and that is kind of moving out. And it's not 100% like moving out, I'm going to stay somewhere in halls for 3 weeks while I do my National Youth Theatre course, and then I'm kind of going to lodge somewhere while I do my degree and other bits and bobs down in London, which is super exciting. But I never ever thought that I would be able to move out. Never ever thought I'd go off to uni or go off and do things. And it's like a really exciting but also really daunting time. And I think it's daunting for everybody. Anybody who goes off to uni or moves out from home, it's a massive thing. But for someone who never thought that would be something they'd ever even want to do, or never even imagined getting to a stage where they even could do it, it's like a huge thing. And it's exciting but also really scary. And it's funny because as I never imagined this was something I was going to ever do, I never really thought about what I would have to do in terms of the process. So I'm currently in the whole trying to pack up my life into boxes, and that is an interesting experience. The only other time that I've packed for a long period of time is to go to the Psych Ward, and very different things are needed for that experience. So it's definitely a new one, and it's something that is exciting, but also leaves me with a lot of feelings of kind of anticipation, anxiety, overwhelm. But I'm excited to go on this journey, and I'm excited to bring you guys along on this journey, because I think for neurodivergent people and for people who for so long we were never expected to be able to achieve things, we never expected to be able to do these things, for someone who never even thought they'd become an adult, these kind of life milestones are massive. I mean, they're massive for everybody, but they're, even bigger. And I think it's exciting to document not just the process, but also the ups and downs and the reality of it. The idea that it's not going to be perfect. Not that it's perfect for anybody, but I will take my neurodivergence with me. I will take my difficulties and my challenges everywhere I go. And I'm excited to be able to share with people the strategies that I find and the ideas that I put in place to support myself in kind of living more independently as a neurodivergent 20-something-year-old who spent so long in hospital and has struggled really badly with their mental health, and to show that, we can still struggle and we can still have difficulties and it never goes away, but we also have the capacity to do all these amazing things, and hopefully share some of the strategies and things that I put in place that help me, so hopefully that can help other people too. I think part of me kind of not wanting to be an adult came from the ideas of what I thought being an adult was, and also the very kind of linear and binary concept and the fear. I think a lot of it came from the fear and the responsibility and this idea that I had to do these things, and that being an adult was this very specific thing. And finding a career has been a really big one for me, and something that having now found more of my niche, has massively improved my mental health. And even now, it's still a struggle. I'm doing so many amazing things. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that I do aren't always necessarily kind of you get paid to do, which is fine. And I'm all for volunteering, and a lot of the things I do are purely for the message and not in terms of like wanting, needing to be paid. But also that same note that, I need money. I need, to have a financial, stable financial thing. And so it's really tricky. And as someone who knows I can't just get a mainstream everyday job, I can't just get a part-time job, in a bar or in a supermarket, because I know that for me that just wouldn't work. And that's not to say that it doesn't work for other people, and it's not to say anything about those kind of jobs, but for me, I just know that I wouldn't be able to do it. And it's really hard because I can do certain things and can't do other things, and that can be really confusing to people, but that just is the way it is. That is just the way my brain works. But in the same breath, as hard as it is, and knowing that, money's always been a massive kind of worry for me, and that's definitely one of the things that I've really struggled with. And definitely, and again, one of the reasons why I didn't want to become an adult was my fear, financially. I'm hoping that I will be able to carve my own path and create my own way of being and of living, and to show that we can create our own lives and we can create a way that works for us. And it may be different, it may be individual, and may be unique, and may even be strange to other people, but that actually by carving out a path that works for us, and by doing roles and jobs that suit who we are and suit our neurodivergence or our disability, means that we are more likely to succeed and to stay in those careers and actually have a life that we're not just surviving but actually thriving. I think I always thought that adults had it all together, and that you needed to have it all together from the beginning. And I'm very much learning that that isn't the case, and that we all kind of go in waves and we all try new things. And I think for me, it was finding how I could use the things I love in my career and in my future. So for me, it very much started with my activism journey in 2020, joining Mind as part of their 2021 to 2024 strategy was such a turning point in my life and in my recovery. And I think I found an absolute love and an absolute reason for being through activism. And with that, there are potential career opportunities, and there already are. I've already been so lucky to work with over 20 organisations now, in both voluntary and paid roles, which is amazing. And it's so lovely to be able to work with other young people, be able to be part of making change and using my experiences to make the world and the system a better place. So that's something that I've really loved. And I definitely have, through that kind of initial youth voice work, there's definitely, the more I've learned about jobs that I never even thought would be possible and didn't even realise were a thing. And it was through that then I kind of gained the confidence to start back up my performing. I performed in my like local town panto as a child, but apart from that I didn't really do that much. I didn't really have any hobbies due to undiagnosed neurodivergence and childhood things. But it was that kind of, I've had this real push, and I went and joining kind of groups, even the ones that didn't go very well. It was all kind of the stepping stones that led to where I am today. And for me, performing and music and acting and dance are such ways of expressing, and is such a lovely feeling. And also that thing of like, when I'm on stage, or when I'm being a character, and more so than even just being on stage, but when I'm performing, when I'm being a character, I love to kind of really look inside that character and really kind of connect with who they are and create a backstory and have loads of fun. And I think that for me, it's become such an outlet and such a really a way of, you know, kind of getting outside of my own head and my own worries and concerns. And I think with that, and then kind of finding the capacity to bring the both together. And it was that then I realised that, you know, I don't need to conform to the point of having a job that I know I would never be able to do. And I think part of me, my fear of navigating being an adult, was that I would never be able to do the adult things that I needed to do. But what I'm learning is that actually there isn't a set path, and there isn't adult things you need to do, or if there are different ways of achieving them. Absolutely, I need a job, but I don't have to work a 9 to 5, or I don't have to work in a supermarket, or I don't have to go and do medicine. There are different ways of creating a career, and yes, it is difficult, and yes, you know, it takes time, but there are ways that I will be able to succeed as an adult in ways that work for me. There are so many opportunities out there, and I think that's something that I wish I'd known more about kind of as I was growing up. And that's kind of really what has helped me navigate becoming an adult and feeling more confident in my identity and myself, is realising that there are loads of opportunities out there and that there are different possibilities. And these things can come and these things can go, but there will be new and other opportunities. And I think I'm definitely someone who really struggles with saying no. I think because of obviously having missed out a lot of time being poorly, and through my childhood, I never really felt like I had done the things or achieved the things that I wanted to do. And so it almost feels like this, I'm running out of time, especially because a lot of youth opportunities end at 25. And I'm getting very close to that age. But I have to keep reminding myself that 25 isn't the end. The 25 isn't the new 18, that everything finishes at that age. That actually, these are all stepping stones for the next stage. And yes, when I turn 25, I won't be able to do the classic youth things, but all the experience that I've got will then take me on to the next stage. And actually, I am not going to be a young person forever. And actually, the things that I've learned and will allow me to take the next stage in, you know, my career and in the process, and like taking on different roles. And that's actually really exciting. And I think rather than looking at things as being final, it's like actually they're the opportunity to move on to the next stage and the next step. I think my move now and the things that I'm going to be doing for this next year are really exciting. And also something that really helped change my mindset was looking at things as kind of like a vision rather than a specific goal. And that's helped me with not viewing things as like necessarily a failure or like not achieving something, but kind of looking at where I would like to be, but not like specifically. And I think that's something that I've spoken about on the podcast before. But I'm so excited to be joining the National Youth Theatre, as well as joining the National Open Youth Orchestra in their London Regional Ensemble, and like starting my kind of degree in inclusive performance, and also having the opportunity to do like social media management, as well as, you know, still doing my blog and doing my podcast, although the blog needs to be done more, and meeting new people and kind of joining different organisations and having the experience of hearing other people's stories and other people's life paths. And actually, for me, that's one of the biggest things. And I think for so long, that loneliness was such a big thing. And, you know, I know me and Millie have done a podcast speaking about loneliness. And is such a big thing that actually I felt so lonely. And I think with that came my need to carve out this very specific and structured path. But actually, the more I make connections and the more I speak to people and I'm just part of the world, I'm learning that actually I don't necessarily need to have all the answers now, and that there is capacity to sit and wait and see what happens. And with that, I'm still, you know, I'm not perfect at that by any stretch of the imagination. And I think money for me is still one of my biggest concerns and my biggest fears in terms of, you know, navigating being an adult. But I guess my big thing that I'm learning is that there is no adulthood isn't a destination. It's the classic thing that it's just like life, it's a journey. And actually, we don't need to think of it as some very prescribed and very specific thing. It's just a bit chaotic like the rest of life. And although that's sometimes scary because there's not a specific, also it's kind of freeing because you know that you can't do it wrong. I know when I left hospital, the biggest thing was that I had no idea how to rebuild my life. And I think that is something that I do want to talk more about and to share more about, because I think there's so much place, you know, for the support and, you know, the medical intervention and therapy and all of those things. But once you kind of get to the end of that bit and you're like ready to go, what is there then? And I think that's something that for me, my recovery, absolutely, there is definitely a big place for the doctors and the nurses and the therapists and all those psychologists that supported me. But actually the biggest thing that kept my recovery going, apart from obviously learning that I was neurodivergent, was rebuilding my life. But actually not even rebuilding, because quite frankly, I built it from scratch. It wasn't going back to something that it was before. It was starting again. And I think that idea of finding out who you are away from your illness, especially when you've been ill for so long, especially then when you've been diagnosed as neurodivergent and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, I don't know who I am. And I think for me, long-term recovery came from the opportunities that I had and the rebuilding of a purpose and having that kind of drive and things to do. And I would say to anybody who's struggling or anybody who's just got out of hospital, it's scary and it's horrible. And this whole concept of, you know, you've been institutionalized, you've been in somewhere where you literally have everything done for you, and then you're thrown out into this world that was scary. You know, it's scary. Part of the reason we got in there in the first place was because we were scared of the world, and now we've been thrown back out here with, you know, hopefully not to use our negative coping mechanisms, but then what else do you have? And my biggest piece of advice would be to breathe, to chill, that it's going to be okay, and then to find a purpose and find things to do. And they don't have to be your life purposes. They don't have to be the things that you do for the rest of your life. Believe me, already since being out of hospital, I have done so many different things, some of which I would love to do again and some of which I never ever want to do again. But actually they're all little steps. And even if the first thing you do is join a free online course that you can do, you know, part-time in your own free time, whether it be starting reading a book, whether it be picking up a new hobby, whether it be something as simple as just going for a walk each day and having that purpose and having that something to get up for each day, and that there is a hope and there is a life outside of, you know, hospital, and that navigating being an adult isn't actually as scary as it can seem. And it's hard, and you will always have days where it's too much. I have days all the time that it's too much and that it all feels like I can't cope with any of it. But actually, it is okay. And there are so many things that are out there for you to do. And the first step is just trying something and see what happens. And I am so grateful to past me who took the leap, took some of those scary steps, tried something new, tried something that I'd never done before, that I was worried people might judge me or I might have to meet new people. But ultimately, I'm so glad I took those steps, because quite frankly, if they'd gone badly, I never have to see those people again. And if it went well, look where I am now. And I think so many of those little steps that little Hannah took, and I remember the fear, like I literally can remember when I decided to go to my first ever adult dance class, and I was so scared, and it was like the biggest step ever, but I went in and I did it, and I literally have found a home for life at that dance school, and it's the best thing that I've ever done. The same as, you know, taking the leap and going to drama school last September with no experience and no real understanding of what I was signing up for. But if I hadn't taken that leap, I wouldn't be sat here now with a podcast, with getting on to the National Youth Theatre, and with about to start a course that really does align with everything that I could have ever wanted. And yeah, do I still have meltdowns? Do I still have days where I cry? Yes, I literally cry every single day. Do I have days where it all feels too much and the whole world is coming in on me? Absolutely. Are there days that I feel like it's all too much and I can't do it anymore? Absolutely. But on those days that I know that this feeling will pass, and that there are so many opportunities and things that I've yet to experience, that if I don't keep going, I'll never get to see what happens. So how do you navigate life after the psych ward, and how do you navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one? Kind of the same way that everybody else does. It's very much a trial and error kind of process, and it's something that in lots of ways is just a little bit chaotic, but it's something that is so worth doing. And if you have any specific thoughts on this or anything you want me to talk about more, please just send me a message or add a comment. And yeah, I would love to hear more about what people would like to hear from this podcast. I think I'm getting a few guests on, which is going to be exciting to hear other people's kind of experiences and stories. But do please let me know if there's anything you kind of would like to hear about, you think would be helpful, even not just for yourself, but for other people. That would be amazing. And I hope you will have an amazing week. It looks like it's going to be some very nice weather. So make sure you're looking after yourselves. If you are taking any kind of medication, make sure you're being safe in the sun, hydrating. And I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.